Daniel, what do you think of this idea of sharing data?
Well, nobody will be surprised that I'm, of course, very thrilled and happy to see the idea of sharing, of solidarity coming back at the end, because that is, of course, one of my issues. I like the idea that we keep thinking about the idea of value, and that gives us a good focus to look on the idea what a smart place actually is. And a smart place is actually, or can be seen as, less of a physical or a digital space, more as a seal of approval that here something is going on that has to do with quality of life, with values we are dealing with in the digital and in the physical world. And what I learned when I think back about the last 2 days is that at a lot of places, the problems of the physical world are being transported, of course, into the digital realm, and it's not a solution to all problems, of course. That means that we cannot get rid of our political ideas, that the urgent political ideas like decolonization and demodernization need to be discussed in an on and offline ping pong. And that means that if you're talking about relationships, relationships are not only digital relationships and connections, but also physical relationships still. That means in terms of mediation, digital mediation, you still need to consider the physical bodies of people, and that gives us the task to incorporate queer, crip experience, diverse experiences into the digital world. And I think this is still a very, very underdeveloped field yet. This is one of my key findings. And the question now is, how do we transport this into a manifesto, or not only a manifesto? You can maybe play with it and make it a manifesto and integrate various perspectives. But I've not been in the last panel on the manifesto, so I'm really curious what Jasmin has to tell about this. If I may take your job and ask this question.
Please.
Is this all right?
Yes.
Okay. So Jasmin, tell me about it.
Oh, I love to. Well, I think before I start maybe presenting the process we went through the last 2 days and the key findings that we had, I think one thing came out really clear also in the manifest development was kind of the thing of prototyping, experimenting, starting small and collaboration, as well as that we need new forms and new ways of measurement success. That besides ticket sales, visitor numbers, we need to find new outcomes for us, and then look for, okay, and how can we communicate this also not within our little circle and our bubble, but also to our stakeholders, to politicians, to the audiences, because this is also something which is new for them. So like being in a museum and working in process. So this is also, it's not just an internal perspective, I think, but also an external perspective. And so on. As you see, even though we had a very fancy thing for development and for our barcamp, we were pretty traditional in developing it.
It's a human approach, as we learned.
A very, very traditional approach. So, one challenge we had was, since we still weren't sure, do we want a manifesto, an algorithm, so what are we talking about? We started actually on a personal level. So the question for the members yesterday was, what's your personal view on digital disruption? So what are your personal feelings on that? Not starting with a manifest and don't take the institutional perspective, but what do you feel on a personal level? And these were the first outcomes. This was like diffusion, being lost, drugs, we even talked about cybersex, innovation, working, access. And from that on, we asked, okay, what could the questions be to these personal feelings, which actually came out here, so you can see them here. And from that on, we said, okay, we have this question now, how can we cluster them? And the first thing which came to our mind, okay, before clustering, we think we need a multi-dimensional approach, which means we always need 3 lenses in answering questions, which is me, us and them, and not thinking in these categories of me as myself, us, the institution, and them, the audiences, but taking the personal point of view. I'm always sometimes a me, sometimes an us, and sometimes a them. So this lens should always be, every question you try to answer in this case should be from this perspective. This was the finding yesterday, and we were like, okay, these are some personal findings, how we'll proceed. And today we had 2 other rounds. I have to say, the people that came were always totally different. So yesterday we had totally different group than we had today in the morning and in the afternoon. I was a bit afraid because, like, I've never done that before. So, but it kind of worked out very well. And so in the second group that we had this morning, which is very interesting, we said, okay, let's not talk about a manifest, talk about a call for action. So this is what we actually think that this is what is needed. And it has to be a practical and adaptable approach. So if we talk about something, a call for action, it needs to be adaptable on a local level. And who are we talking about? And we narrowed it to stakeholders in a cultural context. For Metan, we thought, okay, it's good to have this personal context, but now we have to define, I think this is important for us as a group, why do we want to do a manifest? And we had different streams that we developed from that. And actually what came out of it, even though these streams are very different, I won't go through all of them, we don't have that much time, is that actually we need parameter of thinking and parameter of relationships. So how to develop this manifest, this call for action. And these are the first streams, which still, of course, had to be redefined and to be added to. But these are the parameters of thinking and relationships of how we want to deal with this very practical call of action. And then the second group for today, in the afternoon, we said, okay, now we want to talk about processes. So we are here for 2 days now. It's nice if we've had a personal view. It's nice we have some parameters, but we want to bring it into a process. And I'm proud to say, actually, we funded a founding group, already have a committee. And yes, the best thing. And what actually we said, okay, if we define a process, we need, of course, an agile process. And we thought first about boundaries. So since we want to have this agile, practical, adaptable, we can't do this without the audiences. So we thought, okay, besides founding now an editorial group, which is on board, we need to define stages of development. And what we did is, we said, okay, first we need to set our internal boundaries, which is the question of what should we do and what shouldn't we do. So, and how far can we go, how provocative can we be with this call for action. In the second stage, we were thinking of integrating expert to avoid some noise, but expert from different fields, and bring in new participant into this process. This is kind of the internal consensus stage. From this on, we were thinking of in stage 3 in prototyping a draft together with audiences in a participatory workshops, very analog. And then in the fourth stage, thinking of how can we scale this digitally. And we were thinking of a time frame of the first year. The next conference is in February 2019. And try this kind of, let's say, agile process of prototyping, participation, as well as actually boundary setting within the first year. And then see, okay, is it a call for action? Is it a handbook? Was the process, let's say, successful or not? And then discuss this the next time in Zaragoza for the next conference and see how can we develop the call for action further. And maybe to conclude, the thing was what came out, just do it. Just don't talk about it, start it. And if other people also would like to commit afterwards, I'm happy to collect email addresses so you can be informed. And some people are already verhaftet, so which is good. I know everybody actually took part in the group, is part of the editorial board now. So this is where we are. We found it today, and we will see how we will go on further.
Okay, you had a very hard job, but you did it very well, I think. So one point was to bring in experts and to stimulate more creativity. I think, Beate Lex, you participated in the change management workshop, and there this topic was very important too, to bring in other visions and ideas in order to stimulate processes.
Yes, so I participated in Daniel Neugebauer's workshop this morning on change management, where he told us or gave us deep insights into the change management process they underwent in Van Abbemuseum during the past years. He told us, he gave us some ideas on which concepts they used, the problems they faced, and also ideas about who to work together with. Because coming from an arts institution, so I worked at the MAC in Vienna for about 5 years, and now I'm just quite new in Stuttgart for 4 months now. I always faced the problems there. Okay, who do you trust in when it's about doing something new? From my point of view, we in arts institutions, we are all quite well in doing exhibitions in a certain way and doing publications or catalogs in a certain way. But as soon as it comes to now digital projects, digital mediation, whatever, we are quite insecure. And of course, that's part of it, yeah? You could say, okay, lose this fear, just try it out. But it's difficult. There's many people inside these institutions that have been working there for many years, are used to doing things, how they're doing them. And it's quite difficult to bring them on board and to kind of really bring them into a process. So I was really interested in how you described doing your change management process. Because I think that's integral, that's really important. So really building trust in these processes. Because as you said before in your presentation, which I really liked, being an art historian and business administrator, so I have these two backgrounds. You said when it comes to digital transformation, digital is not the answer, transformation is. And yeah, that's important, but how to manage this, how to do it really. Every one of us somehow wants transformation and wants change, but we're always standing in front of the problem how to really do it. And I think for that we really need experts. We can't do that all ourselves. We're not trained change managers or whatever. And I think that's important for institutions to have that in mind. And also for, yeah, digital projects, as you pointed out, Dominika, having developers, having content, okay, what's missing? What's the missing link? Because having that doesn't mean that a good project comes out, and that, yeah, you need someone who is thinking about user experience. And if you don't integrate that, most probably the project won't work out. So that's, for me, facts I take with me, and I think, yeah, they're important.
Dominika, how did you transform in the last few days?
A little bit tired.
And would you renegotiate this smARTplaces notion?
I would like to come back to Jasmin and to the call for action. I'm really very glad that we are not talking about a manifesto anymore right now, but about a call for action. This gives us quite more air to breathe. That's my impression. But what is really very, very important for me, and I would like to repeat it once again, is that I see this project smARTplaces really as a kind of a blueprint, because as we are all so different, all the partners are so different in this project, but we're facing, well, on the one side different, on the other side very similar problems. We can really be your example for success or for failure for example, to reflect on your own projects in this sense. So I just can ask you to follow us and to see what we are doing, because I think there is a win-win situation for all of us. I was very glad also to see that we have this common thinking that technology is only a rail track. It's like you said, like Michaela said it yesterday. So also this gives us a lot of liberty to really focus on that, what we are able to do, what we already learn, and what we focus on. It's the content. So the content still is for us the most important thing. And now the challenge is coming: which workflows do we have to develop to realize this content in this new way, in this current technological thinking? So, and to come back, right again, everything ends in change management. So every topic we discussed comes back to the question of the change management and what do we have to do now to really realize all these things we would like to realize, and all these things we now start to understand, and the workflows we start to understand. How have we to change ourselves, our institutions? How do we have addressed our CEOs to make them understand that they have to speak with their marketing departments, for example, and what the marketing department in an art institution should be? Because my impression is, when I saw your presentation, that a lot of the CEOs of cultural institutions think in this business way. So we compete with other cultural institutions still, even if we don't have the same content. So, and right, now we need experts who tell our CEOs how to manage these things and to help us to come further.
I really liked as well what Michaela said when she said that she's an enabler, that what CEOs should do to enable as well their colleagues to do what they are able to do. Do we have any comments or just ideas, questions, something you would like to add, or are you all tired as well?
I'd like to add something. I really liked that you said, okay, arts management has to develop itself as a scientific branch with its own rights. And just regarding what you said, Jasmin, how to measure success in the future. I think bringing that together could really help, because CEOs and directors, they want to be successful, like we all want to be, but yeah, what's success? So I think arts management as an academic discipline could really help and could really, also bring something new into, some new perspectives into this question, this very important question, how to measure success.
Would you like to reply or add something?
Well, probably like two thoughts. First, I think what is important if we talk about measuring success is already rethinking what we mean by measuring, because I think that, of course, business teaches us that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and they think about quantitative metrics in that context. And I'm sure that like every organization has a use for quantitative metrics, so I'm not against that. But at the same time, I think it's a bit dangerous to only have these kind of metrics, because then you go optimizing the metrics, but you don't go optimizing your core like values and what you're about. So if we talk about measuring success, I always find it's we have to include an idea of qualitative ways of measuring, or really like defining success in something like images, not just smart goals. But also like an idea, how should visitors feel like when they leave? How should they look like when they leave an exhibition? And I think that's a visitor knows whether it was successful, and they don't express that in numbers. they express it on very different levels if for them an experience was worthwhile and positive. And I think that's already another translation if we think about like measuring that. I don't know if we ever get there if we try to do that quantitatively alone. The second comment about change management, I just want to add again that, of course, again, we are importing a term from business management if we name something change management. And research shows us that the tools change management in a classical way uses fail 75% of the time. So I wouldn't be too optimistic about project management, change management tools in the arts context at the point we are. And I think there's and I'm very sad that I didn't see couldn't be at your workshop about change management, because I guess you surely did stuff differently than just importing change management. But I think like the classical tools from change management will at best be part of what we need right now. And I think there's a lot more that needs to be developed. And again, I think arts could be the place to develop that, what other fields also need, like other ways of dealing with the balance, for example, of change and stability. I always would combine the two. Like we need change, but we also need stability. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Okay.
Maybe one brief thing about this quota, because I really would like to give people the feeling of empowerment and of agency, and these 75% of failure. First of all, failure is good, so that also should ease your mind and say, well, if it doesn't go right this time, maybe next time it does. But second, as far as I know, the sources for these numbers are actually lacking, and that's kind of a myth that is self-reproducing. So nobody really knows where these 70–75% come from that are being repeated all over the time. So maybe the quota is much better, and if you touch on the subjects with a little bit of passion and conviction and with an idea of what values are, then I think you cannot fail at all.
So what I take out, that we need failure and we need this naivety the person described when Berlin Wall was falling, and that's what we would like you to encourage, to keep this naivety in mind, and that's the great challenge of the arts, to yes, to stimulate creativity. So that's the end of our conference, 2 days conference, which was very dense and we had so many perspectives and so many people talking, and we are very much looking forward to the 2 other conferences in Zaragoza and in Dortmund, in Dortmunder U, and we are now working as well on the documentation of this conference, because we will make it online, and so you can re-watch all not the discussions, but the talks online on our website. So thank you very much to all of you for coming, and have a good way home and a good weekend.